Your biggest problem is not lack of money, lack of time, or lack of opportunity. Your biggest problem is that you've become comfortable with disappointment. You've made peace with mediocrity. You've accepted a life that's smaller than what you're capable of, and you've stopped fighting for more. Somewhere along the way, you lowered your expectations, shrunk your dreams, and convinced yourself that wanting more was greedy or unrealistic. You started celebrating small victories that don't actually move you forward. You started calling survival success. You started measuring your life by how well you're managing problems instead of how boldly you're pursuing possibilities. And the worst part, you've surrounded yourself with people who are doing the same thing. So your limited life feels normal. You've created an echo chamber of mediocrity, where everyone agrees that dreams are impractical and settling is wise. You know, there's something absolutely remarkable about a seed. Hold it in your hand, and what do you see? Something small, seemingly insignificant, easy to overlook. But inside that tiny seed is a complete forest. Inside that seed is fruit that will feed thousands. Inside that seed is shade that will shelter generations. The seed doesn't look like what it contains. And that's exactly where most people miss it. They look at themselves and see only what is, never understanding what could be right now, at this very moment. You are carrying something inside you that the world has never seen. You are walking around with a dream, an idea, a vision that keeps whispering to you in the quiet moments. Maybe you've tried to silence it. Maybe you've told yourself it's too late, you're too old, too young, too broke, too uneducated, but it won't leave you alone, will it? And do you know why? Because that dream is not random, it's not fantasy, it's evidence, it's proof that you have the capacity to accomplish it. Let me tell you about a man named Yusuf. Every night, while his city slept, Yusuf walked through the gates of a textile factory for the night shift. The machines were loud. The air was thick with cotton dust, and the work was repetitive. Hour after hour, he would monitor the looms, fix broken threads, and watch fabric roll off the production line. He did this for 12 hours straight, 6 days a week. To everyone around him, Yusuf was just another factory worker, destined to retire from that same position 30 years later. But Yusuf had a secret, hidden in his locker. Underneath his spare uniform and lunch container was a notebook. And in that notebook were drawings, detailed architectural designs, buildings with flowing lines and innovative structures, bridges that seemed to defy gravity, community centers with spaces that brought people together. Every morning when his shift ended at 6, Yusuf wouldn't go straight home. He would sit in the factory cafeteria, pull out that notebook, and draw for an hour before catching the bus home. His hands, stained with machine oil, would carefully sketch his dreams onto paper. His co-workers thought he was wasting his time. His family told him to focus on getting promoted to supervisor. His friends said he should be grateful to have steady work. But Yusuf couldn't stop drawing. He couldn't stop seeing buildings in his mind. He couldn't stop dreaming. Now, here's what I need you to understand. Most people die with their dreams still inside them. They die with their music still in them. They die with their books unwritten, their businesses never started, their inventions never created. And it's not because they lacked ability, it's because they listened to the wrong voices. They looked at their current reality and accepted it as their permanent address. They confused their location with their destination. You see, the greatest tragedy in life is not death. The greatest tragedy is living without purpose. It's going to the grave with all that potential still locked inside. And I'm telling you today, that doesn't have to be your story. The dream you carry is not there to torment you. It's there to transform you. It's there to pull you forward, to stretch you, to make you become the person you were designed to be. Every single human being born into this world came with an original blueprint. You are not a copy. You are not a duplicate. You are not here to live someone else's life or fulfill someone else's dream. You have a unique assignment. And your dream is connected to that assignment. When you were manufactured, The manufacturer placed everything inside you that you would need to fulfill your purpose. You are not lacking, you are not deficient, you are fully loaded. But here's the problem. Most people don't believe that. They look at their circumstances and think their dream is impossible. They look at their bank account and think they can't afford their dream. They look at their education and think they're not qualified for their dream. They look at their age and think they've missed their opportunity. But all of that is a lie. Your dream is not asking you if you're ready. Your dream is asking you if you're willing. Yusuf wasn't qualified to be an architect. He had barely finished secondary school. He had no money for university. He had no connections in the construction industry. He had no mentor to guide him. All he had was a dream that wouldn't let him sleep peacefully. All he had was a vision that kept pulling him forward. And that was enough, because the dream itself was proof that he had the capacity to achieve it. Listen to me carefully. You would not be able to see it if you were not equipped to be it. The fact that you can conceive it means you can achieve it. Your mind cannot create an image of something you don't have the potential to accomplish. That's how you were designed. Your imagination is not there to torture you with impossible fantasies. Your imagination is there to show you the preview of what's possible for your life. But here's where most people stop. They dream, but they don't do. They wish, but they don't work. They hope, but they don't move. And a dream without action is just a hallucination. It's just entertainment. It's just something to think about while you live a life of quiet desperation. And I refuse to let that be your story. You were not born to be a spectator in your own life. You were born to be a participant. You were born to build, to create, to manifest, to bring something from the invisible realm into the visible realm. Yusuf made a decision. He decided that he would rather fail trying than succeed at settling. He decided that his current situation was not his final destination, and that decision changed everything. The day after Yusuf made that decision, nothing changed. He still went to the factory, he still worked the night shift, he still came home exhausted, but something inside him had shifted. He stopped waiting for perfect conditions. He stopped waiting for someone to give him permission. He stopped waiting for a miracle to fall from the sky. He realized that he was the miracle. His willingness to move was the miracle. So Yusuf did something that seemed crazy to everyone around him. After working 12-hour night shifts, he enrolled in evening classes at the technical college. Yes, you heard me right. Evening classes after night shifts. He would finish work at 6 in the morning, go home, sleep for 4 hours, wake up, study for 2 hours, then go to class from 2 in the afternoon until 6 in the evening. Then he would eat something quickly and head back to the factory for another 12-hour shift. His body was exhausted. His eyes were red. His friends told him he was killing himself. His mother cried and begged him to stop. But Yusuf understood something that most people never learn. The price of discipline is always less than the price of regret, you see. Everybody wants the dream, but nobody wants the process. Everybody wants the harvest, but nobody wants to plow the ground. Everybody wants the victory, but nobody wants the training. But let me tell you something about how life works. You cannot microwave your destiny. You cannot skip levels. You cannot arrive at a destination you haven't prepared to occupy. The dream you see is real, but the journey to that dream requires something from you. It requires a sacrifice. It requires discipline. It requires you to do what others won't do so you can have what others will never have. For 3 years, Yusuf lived this way. 3 years of sacrifice that nobody saw. 3 years of studying while his friends were sleeping. 3 years of investing in himself while others were spending on temporary pleasures. His co-workers at the factory mocked him. They called him the professor with sarcasm in their voices. They said he was trying to be better than everyone else. They said he would fail and come back embarrassed. But Yusuf had learned to protect his dream from small-minded people. He understood that not everyone deserves access to your vision. Some people are dream killers, and you have to keep your distance from them. Now, let me tell you about someone else. Her name was Zara. She grew up in her father's carpentry workshop. While other girls were playing with dolls, Zara was in the workshop watching her father build furniture. She was fascinated by how he could take raw wood and transform it into something beautiful and functional. She would collect the wood scraps and build little houses for her toys. Her father noticed her interest and started teaching her. By the time she was 12, she could use every tool in the workshop. But Zara's dream was bigger than furniture. She wanted to design homes. She wanted to create spaces where families would build memories. She wanted to construct buildings that would stand for generations. People laughed at her in her community. Girls didn't become architects. Girls didn't work in construction. Girls were supposed to choose safe, acceptable careers. But Zara had a dream, and she refused to let other people's limitations become her prison. So she started where she was, with what she had. She began designing and building elaborate dollhouses, not just simple boxes, but detailed structures with proper proportions, innovative layouts, and creative use of space. She sold these dollhouses and saved every penny. Then she moved to designing and renovating storage sheds for neighbors, then small room additions, then full house renovations. Each project was a classroom. Each challenge was a teacher. She learned by doing. She grew by trying. And 15 years after building her first dollhouse, Zara owned an architecture firm with 12 employees and projects across 3 cities. Do you see the pattern? Both Yusuf and Zara understood the principle of progressive realization. Your dream doesn't manifest all at once. It unfolds in stages. It develops in seasons. And each season is preparing you for the next level. When you're in the difficult season, when you're working 2 jobs, when you're studying late at night, when you're starting small and people are underestimating you, that's not wasted time. That's preparation time. That's character building time. That's the season where your roots go deep, so that later, when the fruit comes, you'll be strong enough to carry it. Most people want to skip this part. They want the shortcut. They want the elevator to the top. But let me tell you something about shortcuts. They don't lead to lasting success. They lead to collapse. Because if you get to a level you're not prepared for, you won't be able to maintain it. You'll sabotage it. You'll lose it. The preparation period is not punishment. It's protection. It's getting you ready to handle what you've been asking for. Yusuf could have tried to fake his way into an architecture firm. He could have lied on his resume. He could have looked for a shortcut. But he chose the long road. He chose to build his foundation properly. He chose to earn his credentials, develop his skills, and prove his commitment. And that choice made all the difference. Because when his opportunity came, he was ready. Not just ready with talent, but ready with character, ready with discipline, ready with the work ethic that had been forged in those 3 years of night shifts and evening classes. You need to understand something right now. The season you're in is not your enemy. The struggle you're facing is not a sign that you're on the wrong path. The difficulty is developing you. The pressure is preparing you. The resistance is strengthening you. Don't despise the process. Don't rush the season. Don't try to force the door open before it's time. Trust the timing of your life. Keep working, keep learning, keep growing, keep moving forward, even when nobody's watching, even when nobody's cheering, even when nobody believes, because the dream inside you is worth every sacrifice. Every sleepless night, every moment of doubt that you push through. Now, let me tell you what nobody talks about when they're selling you dreams. They don't tell you about the resistance. They don't tell you about the opposition that will come from every direction the moment you decide to pursue your dream. And I'm not talking about small inconveniences. I'm talking about real, substantial opposition that will test whether you truly want what you say you want. There are 3 types of opposition you will face. The first is external opposition. These are the people around you who don't see your vision. Your family members who think you're being irresponsible. Your friends who feel threatened by your growth. Your colleagues who mock your ambition. your neighbors who gossip about your failures. These people are not necessarily evil. They're just limited by their own experience. They can't see what you see because they're not called to build what you're called to build. And you have to make peace with the fact that not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone will celebrate your progress. Not everyone will be there when you succeed. The second type of opposition is internal. This is the battle in your own mind. The fear that whispers you're not good enough. The doubt that reminds you of every past failure. The insecurity that compares you to everyone else who seems further ahead. The voice that tells you to quit while you still have your dignity. This internal opposition is often more dangerous than external opposition because it comes from within. It knows your weaknesses. It knows your triggers. It knows exactly what to say to make you stop. The third type of opposition is environmental. These are the circumstances that seem to conspire against your dream. The lack of money, the lack of time, the lack of resources, the lack of opportunities, the doors that keep closing, the setbacks that keep coming, the obstacles that appear just when you think you're making progress. This environmental opposition will make you question if you're really supposed to be doing this. It will make you wonder if the universe is trying to tell you something. Let me take you back to Yusuf. 3 years into his journey, everything fell apart. His father, who had been the primary breadwinner for their extended family, suffered a stroke. Suddenly, the financial pressure shifted to Yusuf. His mother sat him down with tears in her eyes and said, "Son, we need you. Your brothers and sisters need school fees. Your father needs medication. We can't survive on your factory salary alone. If you keep spending money on these classes, you need to quit school and take extra shifts at the factory." That night, Yusuf sat alone in his room with his notebook spread out in front of him. 3 years of sacrifice, 3 years of sleepless nights, 3 years of mockery and misunderstanding. And now this. He picked up his notebooks, walked to the small stove in the corner of his room, and held them over the flame. He was done. He was ready to burn it all and accept his fate as a factory worker forever. The dream had cost him too much. The price was too high. But then something happened. As he held those notebooks over the flame, he remembered why he started. He remembered the first building he ever saw that took his breath away. He remembered the feeling of knowing, absolutely knowing, that he was born to create spaces that would impact lives. He remembered the voice inside him that had been speaking since he was a child, telling him he was meant for more. And in that moment, he made a decision. He would find a way. He didn't know how, but he would find a way to take care of his family and continue pursuing his dream. He pulled those notebooks back from the flame, and he made a commitment that nothing, absolutely nothing, would make him quit the next day. Yusuf went to his supervisor and asked for additional responsibilities that came with higher pay. He started working overtime. He cut his sleep from 4 hours to 3. He studied during his lunch breaks at the factory. He recorded his lectures and listened to them while working the machines. It was brutal. It was exhausting. But he refused to stop because he understood something crucial. The opposition was not there to stop him. The opposition was there to test him. It was there to see if he really wanted it or if he was just playing games with his destiny. Let me tell you about another person. His name was Tariq. He owned a small bicycle repair shop in a crowded market. Every day, people brought him broken bicycles, and he fixed them. It was honest work. But Tariq had a bigger dream. He wanted to manufacture his own brand of bicycles. Not expensive racing bikes, but affordable, durable bicycles for working people like himself. Bicycles that could handle rough roads and heavy loads. Bicycles that would last for years, for 5 years. Tariq saved every extra coin he made. He lived in a tiny room behind his shop. He ate simple meals. He wore the same clothes until they were threadbare. His relatives thought he was being stingy. They didn't know he was saving for a dream. After 5 years, he had enough money to build his first prototype. He worked on it for 6 months, pouring everything he knew into that bicycle. When it was finished, he took it for a test ride. Within 2 kilometers, the frame cracked. The bicycle was a complete failure. Most people would have quit right there. 5 years of saving, 6 months of building, and it all ended in failure. But Tariq didn't see it that way. He saw it as education. He learned what didn't work. He studied the crack in the frame and understood why it happened. He went back to his shop and started building prototype number 2. This one took him another 8 months and the last of his savings. He tested it. And this time, it lasted longer, but on a steep hill with a heavy load. The chain mechanism failed catastrophically. Tariq sat on the side of that road, looking at his broken bicycle, and he started laughing. Not the laughter of someone who had lost his mind, but the laughter of someone who had just understood something profound. He realized that every failure was simply information. Every breakdown was showing him what to fix. Every setback was setting him up for a comeback. So he picked up that broken bicycle, carried it back to his shop, and started working on prototype number 3 this time. He changed the frame design completely. He reinforced the chain mechanism. He tested every component under extreme conditions before assembling the full bicycle. And when prototype 3 was ready, something remarkable happened. A businessman who had been watching Tariq's persistence for 2 years approached him. This man had seen the failures. He had seen Tariq refuse to quit. And he said something that changed everything. He said, "I don't invest in ideas. I invest in people who refuse to stop. I want to fund your bicycle manufacturing." Today, Tariq's bicycles are sold in 4 countries. His factory employs over 60 people. His bicycles are known for their durability and affordability. But none of that would have happened if he had quit at prototype 1 or prototype 2. The breakthrough was always on the other side of one more attempt. The victory was always waiting just beyond the point where most people give up. Now, let me bring you back to Yusuf, 7 years after he started those evening classes. 7 years of sacrifice that most people will never understand. Yusuf graduated with his architecture degree. He didn't graduate top of his class. He didn't win any special awards. But he had something more valuable than awards. He had character that had been forged in fire. He had discipline that had been built through years of doing what others wouldn't do. He had a work ethic that made him unstoppable. Yusuf didn't get hired by a big firm. He started small, just like Zara did. He began designing small renovations for people in his community. A room addition here, a shop redesign there. Nothing glamorous, nothing that would make headlines. But he poured excellence into every project. He treated every small job like it was $1 million contract. And slowly, his reputation grew. People started talking about the young architect who used to work at the factory. The architect who understood working people because he was one of them. The architect who designed spaces that were both beautiful and practical. Then came the project that changed everything. His old neighborhood needed a community center. The local council had a limited budget and couldn't afford the big architectural firms. Someone remembered Yusuf. They called him in and he presented a design that was innovative, cost-efficient, and perfect for the community's needs. He got the contract, and for the next 18 months, Yusuf poured his heart into that project. He was on site every day. He solved problems. He adjusted designs. He worked with builders who had limited skills and made them feel like master craftsmen. When that community center opened, something beautiful happened. Yusuf's former co-workers from the factory came to the opening ceremony. These were the same men who had mocked him, who had called him the professor with sarcasm, who had told him he was wasting his time. They stood in front of that building, looking up at the structure, and they saw Yusuf's name on the plaque. The architect who had worked beside them on the factory floor had designed this. One of them, a man named Ibrahim, who had been the loudest critic, walked up to Yusuf with tears in his eyes and said, You showed us that it's possible. You showed us that we don't have to stay where we started. That's what happens when you refuse to give up on your dream. Your breakthrough doesn't just change your life, it changes the lives of everyone watching. It gives permission to others who have dreams but are afraid to pursue them. It proves that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. It demonstrates that your beginning doesn't determine your ending. Let me tell you one more story before I finish. There was a woman named Layla. She was an elementary school teacher for 15 years, every day. She would tell stories to her students, not stories from books, but original stories that she created. Stories about courage, about kindness, about children who overcame obstacles. Her students loved these stories. They would beg her to tell more. Parents would mention how their children talked about Teacher Layla's stories at dinner. But Layla never wrote these stories down. She never thought they were good enough to publish. She never believed that anyone beyond her classroom would care about her stories. Until one day, when she was 52 years old, one of her former students, now an adult, tracked her down and said, "Teacher Layla, I'm a parent now, and I want to tell my daughter the stories you told us, but I can't remember them all. Have you written them down?" That question planted a seed. Layla started writing. She compiled 15 years of stories into a manuscript. Then she did something brave. She sent it to publishers. The first rejection came quickly, then the second, then the 10th, then the 20th. By the time she reached 40 rejections, she was 54 years old. People told her to stop embarrassing herself. People said if the book was any good, someone would have published it by now. But Layla had learned something from years of teaching children. She had learned that persistence pays off. She had learned that just because something takes time doesn't mean it's not worth doing. So, at 54, Layla decided to self-publish her book. She used her savings to print 500 copies. She sold them at local bookstores, at parent-teacher meetings, at community events. Teachers started buying them for their classrooms. Parents started requesting them. Within a year, a major publisher noticed the grassroots success and offered her a contract. Today, at 63 years old, Layla has published 12 books. Her stories are required reading in schools across multiple regions. She receives letters from children and parents thanking her for her words.